Are one-frame links a lot harder in Street Fighter 4? One-frame links do not exist in the traditional sense in 5 or 6. So yes. I don't know how to break that to you. Any link that is a one-frame link in Street Fighter 5 or 6 is actually enabled via an input buffer of like 5+ frames. So I think 5 frames is the ultimate, or the amount of leniency between 3 and 5. I forget. I don't quite remember. So they don't exist unless you're doing micro walk. 3 frame? I always hear 3 frame, and then some other tech nerd will say 5 frames. I've completely lost the plot on the input buffers on both 5 and 6. So I used to always say it was 3 frames. And then, yeah. And actually, I remember I went a whole video through this, and I saved a resource that had all this data written down, and I completely mixed it up again. Yeah, there's different buffers for different types of moves. That is true. So in Street Fighter 4, for example, I think there was a 10-frame buffer for your special moves. So if you're in a state where your action can't come out, like you're recovering from block, hit, stun, or on wake up, or there's a screen freeze, your special moves will have a 10-frame buffer, I believe. Double check these numbers, but it was a huge buffer for special moves to happen on reversal in Street Fighter 4. But for normals, there was a 0 buffer. So if you're linking between 2 normals and it's a 1-frame link, you have 1/60th of a second to actually time that. So the link buffers in 5 and 6 are extremely generous. So there is no such thing as a 1-frame link unless you're doing something like a micro walk where you have to avoid the buffer, something of that nature. They don't exist. And I think the best way to understand this is to open up Street Fighter 4 and do a combo with 1-frame links and realize, like, holy shit, I have never done a hard combo in my life. I figured a 1-frame link in 5 and 6 was just easier because of buffering. Every link is equally as difficult in 5 and 6. You don't have to think about a difference in difficulty. They're all just the same easy. So don't worry. That's why no one discusses the concept of this is a 2-frame versus a 4-frame versus a whatever link. They're all the same, essentially, because there's a buffer. And if you are new school enough that you don't understand the difference, just look at any combo in Street Fighter 4, then try to do it, and realize you have never done a hard combo before. There's very few rare hard combo situations in modern Street Fighter, and usually they're due to some other external factors and not because of links. They might be due to a lot of inputs, awkward super or special cancel things, some unique mechanic that requires like negative edge, frame perfect timing. They'll have to have some kind of unique mechanic that makes it so it's difficult. So they do exist. There are hard combos, but like almost every combo in Street Fighter 4 by comparison is hard. Like all of them. And I still think that's a huge point of contention that even I have with modern game design. I like 4, 5, and 6. I do like them. But there's a completely different flow and vibe to them because of input buffers. Whereas in Street Fighter 4, everybody dropped their combos all the time. And you had to constantly make risk-reward decisions based on the conversion you wanted to go for because there was such a wide field of available combo options that had an extremely wide variance in terms of difficulty from the easiest to the hardest. And there was like 40 different combo route options in between. So because of that, you would see constant variety in combo route options. And also, if you want to go for the easy route for less reward, less damage, less Oki, less whatever, and be more consistent, or go for the hard route because you're trying to cash out, and you would see a huge variety in these combo options. Also, like the flow of the game was different because punishing things was difficult. There was no input buffer on punishes either, unless you're punishing with a special move. So things that were -3 on block would be 1-frame punishes if you're trying to punish with a normal, like a jab. So things were notoriously difficult to punish. And so you could do a lot more. There was a lot more dynamic gameplay unless you got hit with a Vortex character from a guy who didn't drop their combos, because people would constantly drop or constantly hedge their bets on their conversions all the time. Even if you match DP, there's a huge chance that someone might drop their DP punish, or they'll have to go for a much simpler punish because they can't do the max damage combo every single time. Whereas in Street Fighter 5 and 6, someone blocks their DP, you're probably going to eat the fattest combo of your life. Like, you're probably going to eat the max damage combo. Now, obviously, people still mess up their combo conversions because of the decision-making that happens with combo routing and optimizing with meter and spacing and all that. That still happens. But I'm just saying, it happens nowhere near to the same degree as in older Street Fighter titles. Nowhere near. So it's just very different. And that is an enjoyable aspect of Street Fighter 4. Like I said, I still like 5 and 6 a lot. Great games, but there's a completely different game feel because of that. Not a fan of mandatory plinking. I really hate that take because you don't have to plink. I don't understand why that's always a thing. There's nothing is mandatory. Whenever this topic comes up, I hate when people say mandatory this or that because you don't have to do anything. You can just do easier combos. And just because you can't do the harder combos, too bad. Like, I don't know what the fuck else to say. I think that's great. I think that's great that there's people out there who will not put in the work and do worse combos. That way, when you see somebody who did put in the work, you can go, oh, this guy is better than that guy. Like, I love that. I love that for people who want to be worse, they can be worse. And for people who want to be better, they can choose to be better. I don't understand why that's such a difficult pill to swallow. I think that makes the spectator experience so much better. Because I could instantly go, oh, that guy went for that combo. This guy put in work. Like, it's just instantaneously. I could instantly recognize that this player is better with this character than this player. Like, it's so, it's instantaneous. At a certain point, creating stupid custom button layouts that have select button accessible at all times is not the intended experience. Sure, I can get that. I understand what you're saying. At the highest level, the edge cases start coming out where people are like drilling in the extra select button to get to the highest level. But at the same time, I think there's a charm in that. You know, I'm a big fan of people pushing the unintended experience. I love when the unintended becomes the thing players exploit. I'm a huge fan of that. Same thing with like Oro stuff, you know, whatever. I really, really love when there is this tug of war between the developer's intentions and the player's exploitations of the engine. I love that. That is my favorite thing about video games in general. Pushing the boundaries of what was intended to happen. That's why I love speedruns. I love that about fighting games. Like, so it's a not everyone is about that, and sometimes it goes too far. And not saying there's not value in an intentionally designed game. I think Street Fighter 5 and 6 were much more intentionally designed games, especially 6. And there's value in that. But I also love the other side of it. But sometimes it can turn ugly. Sometimes I can go down a dark path that is not good. Like, we have accidental masterpieces like MVC2, but that easily could have been terrible. So, same thing with CVS. CVS was only salvaged. CVS 2 was only salvaged by the fact that roll canceling became a thing. Or I guess maybe, from what I hear from some players, it was ruined also by that. However, I still overall, I don't like the argument that saying X, Y, or Z was mandatory to play. No, you can just be bad at the game. That's fine. Like, you can just focus more on neutral. You could just focus more on matchup knowledge. You could just focus more on this setups or whatever. Like, there was different stat points and different avenues of expression you could go down. I feel like the overabundance of OSs in 4 hurt it a lot. I also have mixed views on that too, because I feel like we needed the OSs because the offense was so fucked up. I also strongly disagree with people who are diametrically opposed to OSs in general. When people say OSs are bad and that's their stance, I think that's such an oversimplification. Because everything is an OS, bro. So some people make that way too black and white. You would never say that if you had to try to do Oki against Rose without Street Fighter 4 OSs? Yeah, imagine trying to meaty Rose and then not having like a backdash OS or something that covered her wake-up drill. Backdashes were invincible in that game. If you didn't have offensive OSs, so both for defense and on offense, if you didn't have certain OSs, the game was unplayable. Yeah, Rose backdashing and you can never hit her. Yeah, that'd be a bit much, huh? Do you miss Street Fighter 4 Geef, the green hand and all that? Hell no. Street Fighter 4 Geef was definitely not good. Just input 10 things in the game, decides to pick right one for you. Sounds fun. Yeah, bro, that's totally what happens. That's how OSs work. That's how I play Street Fighter 4. I just input 10 things and the game decides which one to do for me.